Good evening, sci-fi movie nerds, and welcome to another episode of the Sci-Fi Movie Guy Show. This is a special edition. We're going to do our top 10 droids, only in canon, countdown. I got Jason from Trenchman Rebels here with me, and we're going to do this just like Matt Nost and John Roca do on the Top 10 Collider show. So I'm going to do my bottom three, then he's going to do his bottom three, my bottom two, his bottom two, then we're going to trade one apiece till we get to our number ones. But we're going to start out today with some honorable mentions that didn't quite get our list. So I'm going to let Jason talk about his honorable mentions first, and then I'm going to get into some of mine.
Sure. With our list, we tried to keep everything, not try to, do or do not, there is no try. We kept everything within canon Star Wars. I mean, if you go outside of canon to Legends, there's a vast array of characters and droids out there that we could have chosen from, but we kept everything within canon. But for a couple of my honorable mentions, I wanted to mention some guys from Legends, and that is HK-47 from Knights of the Old Republic and Proxy from The Force Unleashed. Yes, sometimes I get Force Unleashed.
I don't think I'm familiar with either of those two.
They're both video games.
Okay.
The Force Unleashed, there was a Force Unleashed 1 and a Force Unleashed 2 for gaming consoles, as well as Knights of the Old Republic. Proxy is from Force Unleashed. He was a figure, droid, that he was actually tasked by the main character of there, Star Killer, to constantly be trying to kill him. He was tasked by his master to try and kill his master.
Okay.
as a test to make sure that
keep him on his toes.
Yeah, his force abilities are always good. And as a droid, he can change into anybody from the Star Wars universe. So being in the Force Unleashed, you'd all of a sudden have Darth Maul show up, and Starkiller would have to fight Darth Maul, and it would turn out to be Proxy.
Okay.
Disguised as whoever he took on. But he was full of attitude, full of sass, and he was a great character. And same with HK-47 from the Knights of the Old Republic. He was a droid that was very sure of himself and very strong and very powerful. And
cool.
Great Legends droids.
And then we both had for honorable mentions R5-D4.
Yes.
I had him on there because R5-D4 almost became the star of Star Wars if he wouldn't have malfunctioned when Owen was going for his droid to help out on the farm. Yeah. R5-D4 was the first choice, and then we got R2 after that. So that's why he was an honorable mention for me. How about for you?
I really wanted to put him on my top 10 list. He's exactly. He could have been the star of the show, although he didn't have the Death Star plans placed inside of him. But just one bad motivator, and that's what kept him out of the show, right?
And then I had two on there, and these are, again, very small parts in the movies, but I really like the gatekeeper droid at Jabba's palace when he sticks his little head out of the door, and he's talking to C-3PO, and he's not going to let them in, probably. And then I like the Kruntan B Machine EW-3 midwife droid from Revenge of the Sith.
Oopa.
Exactly. Oopa, oopa. Oh, yeah. I don't know why. That droid just kind of... something about him. Or her.
Big, highlight scoops.
Yeah. So they didn't quite make our list, but we thought we'd mention them just because it's cool. So I'm going to start my list. And number 10, we've got Huang. He was the lightsaber builder and I think we only saw him in one episode of Rebels. But he had such a cool presence about him. He was teaching the Padawans how to build lightsabers. He was finding the hilts for them. I really like what he did for the little Wookiee, making that wood hilt for his lightsaber. And I'm, 4 minutes of the episode, 3 minutes of the episode, but he really made a big impact on me. Just the level of knowledge, and he'd been building lightsabers for, I think they said, thousands of years. Mm-hmm. So he probably saw all those old Republic Jedi and helped them build lightsabers. Probably helped a bunch of our cool characters like Obi-Wan Kenobi build his first lightsaber.
True. Interesting little facts. That character was voiced by David Tennant, who some of you might know as Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
He was also the only actor in the Clone Wars to win an Emmy for his portrayal of Huang, which is odd because there was some fantastic talent throughout the entire
was it in
seasons.
the Clone Wars that he helped them build the lightsabers, not Rebels?
Yeah,
that's
Clone
right.
Wars.
You're right. Yeah, I'm glad you pointed
through
that
that
out.
entire series, 6 seasons, he was the only person to win an Emmy for his performance.
Wow.
Which is, I don't know about that, but he did a great job. Not saying that he didn't, but there were so many other people that were really deserving. But he was a great character. I really liked him too.
So then we get into my number 9, which is the Imperial Probe Droid. Now,
I could say punt on that because I have him a little higher on the list, but
oh, well, let's say punt then.
okay.
Absolutely. So then we get into my number 8, which is C-3PO. And I know I'm going to take a lot of flack on this one.
I could say punt again because he's higher up my list.
Then we'll punt him. So
Okay.
we'll start with your number 10 then.
Okay, my number 10, it's a fairly obscure character in the canon sense of the word, but QTKT,
Oh, I love this droid.
also known as R2KT. The reason I have this droid on my list is because of the significance that this droid plays outside of the canon universe. The droid appears in, I think, 1 or 2 episodes of the Clone Wars animated series.
He was in that one. She was in that one episode that I love with the 5 droids. Secret Weapon, I think it's called.
Yeah, I think so. And she was also in a season in the Abyss, or
Okay.
where they went to this planet and with General Garçon, or this little character. Anyway, she's a pink R2 unit. She's hard to miss. She also makes a brief appearance in The Force Awakens. Now, the story behind her, she was created as part of a I just lost the word.
Well,
A charitable.
yeah, they helped
charitable
with cancer, I think.
Yes, the founder of the 501st, his daughter actually got terminal brain cancer, and so they started this large charitable thing to raise money and raise awareness for his daughter, Katie. And so they came up with basically a pink R2 unit and called it R2KT. And Dave Filoni was the first one to introduce her into canon, but he brought her in as QTKT because I think he said there's no R2 unit.
Yeah, he said there's only one R2 unit, and we can't call it R2, so we're going to change the name to
Right.
QT.
So she switched to QTKT and she became canon. But I think just having that backstory and then having them bring it into canon because of that backstory, I mean, that says a lot about the fan base of Star Wars. There's no other fans like Star Wars fans.
That's awesome. So what is your number 9?
My number 9, I've got the power droid, Gonk, the Gonk droid. Now, he first appeared in the original Star Wars, A New Hope. He was in the Jawa Sandcrawler. You could see him walking around in the background. He got his name because of the sound that he makes. He kind of walks around just gonk, gonk, gonk. That's essentially all he does inside of the Star
And
Wars
wasn't he
universe.
the one where he had his feet upside down and they were burning him? What movie was that in?
Yeah, that was Return of the Jedi.
That was Jedi, where they're like, "Whoa!" and he's screaming.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Yeah.
He's getting tortured and
he looks like a McDonald's garbage can.
pretty much. He does look
With
like a
feet.
McDonald's garbage can. I think they took a lot of inspiration for the design of his character from the old movie Logan's Run.
Yeah, I can
In
see
Logan's
that.
Run, there was kind of those boxy droids that walked around. And I think George Lucas liked the idea of having human characters or human people inside of his droids to give them some sort of life. And they had people inside of the Gonk droid in A New Hope, in Return of the Jedi, and in Force Awakens.
I love
carried
that
it forward.
they went back to Force Awakens and it wasn't all CGI like the prequels.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
They put people inside of the cans and made them live.
Yeah. All right, I don't really have anything to add on him. I just wanted to add the part where he was getting his feet burned.
He's just cool. He looks good, so he's on my list.
All right,
So if we want to move on to my number 8,
you bet.
I've got at number 8 listen to the way I pronounce this, 4LOM.
You mean Forlom?
No, I mean 4LOM.
Oh,
There's kind of a rift in the divide of fandom where half the people say 4LOM and the people that are correct say 4LOM. I don't care. However you want to say it. He's part of the original lineup of bounty hunters in Empire Strikes Back. You've got that cool lineup standing there. And
when they're down in the pit looking up at
Yeah,
all
exactly.
the... Yeah, I remember
He's
that.
got the
Boba Fett.
Boba Fett
That was his
and
first
Dengar.
introduction, wasn't it? Of Boba Fett. That's the first time we see him?
canon-wise, yeah.
Canon-wise,
we
yeah.
see him in the holiday special.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, that's the first time we see Boba Fett canon, and we see all that lineup of bounty hunters. And so with 4LOM, he's on screen for maybe 5 seconds, maybe 6. But me being a a collector of the vintage figures, he was just one of the must-haves. That whole bounty hunter lineup was really cool, and those vintage figures as a kid, the droids and the bounty hunters, they were just really cool. And for LOM, he's basically C-3PO with a different head on top of him, but he's painted gray and he's got this cool big blaster. He was just a kind of a badass figure, and he's on my list now.
And you know what? Just to further that, I mean, that scene in Empire Strikes Back, when you see all those bounty hunters, it's the first time that I get a real sense of Darth Vader. You know, at first I thought, okay, you know, Darth Vader's going to hunt everybody down himself, but I get the real sense of his power and that he's hiring all these bounty hunters because it's beneath him to go after this. He goes after the really important people, but you know what, you guys, I'm just going to hire a load of bounty hunters. And I think that really helped develop Darth Vader's character. And at the same time, we saw, like, he looked so cool.
Yeah.
And
you've got, to your point, you've got all these really cool, really menacing looking creatures, droids, humans, whatever, and you've got...
is that the first time we see Bosk, too? Yeah, it is, so...
And you've got Darth Vader giving him the what for. You know, he's like, you're going to do this, and no disintegrations. Like, he's really in charge there, so you know Vader's a force to be reckoned with.
All right, so that was your bottom three. We had to kick a bunch of my bottom three up. So let's go to my number 7, which is just affectionately known as Flo. Flo was the waitress droid in Attack of the Clones in the diner scene when Obi-Wan goes to find out about the little dart. I can't remember, Camino dart. Yeah. And Flo's floating around taking orders, and Obi-Wan walks in, and she's just like the old school diner waitress. And I loved the TV show with Flo and Mel's Diner.
Yep.
And so when I saw that and then I found out they named her Flo, she had to make my list. Because, again, a very small part in the movies, but a very big impact on that movie. Like, people were talking about her for a long time after that movie.
Her being Flo, I thought it was cute. She's not on my list anyway. Maybe she would have made my list had she said kiss my grits, but
yeah.
I'll digress.
And then we go to my number 6, which is the B-1 battle droids. And again, I'm probably going to take a little flack on this, but they're best known for saying Roger, Roger. I know they were stupid, but if they didn't have these droids in the Star Wars prequels, you wouldn't have anything for the Jedi to cut down, mow down. The comedic relief they provided in the movie, I loved it. And I don't talk very well about the prequels, but the more I watch the prequels, the more they're growing on me a little bit. Like, I watched them again last weekend because I was sick, and I watched all 3 of them again. And, each time I watch them, they're growing on me a little bit more. And, I mean, without those, what do you call them, like wicked or black stepchilds or however you call them.
Wicked stepchilds? Or...
No, black sheep of the family is what I was looking for. Without the prequels, you don't really know the whole story behind it, and you're not so invested in Darth Vader later. And they were a big part of the prequels, so that's why they made my list.
To your prequels point, I think watching the Clone Wars really helps inform the characters, and specifically Anakin, and so it kind of makes the prequels even that much better. The battle droids in there, individually, they were useless.
Yeah.
But they came in hordes. They came and just relentlessly, one after another. Like you said, the Jedi would just mow them down like they're nothing. But there's 10,000 more just coming at you. And I thought, as a group, they were kind of cool. At one point, I had them on my list, but they got bumped off for other guys.
All right, so that was my number 6. So now we go to your number 7.
My number 7 is the probe droid.
So that's where you bumped it. I had it at 9. You had it at 7. Okay.
So I had him at 7. And again, he's one of these characters that makes just a really brief appearance. His first appearance was in Empire Strikes Back. He was the characters that the Empire sent out when they were looking for the rebels, and one of them landed on Hoth, and he pops up and he sends out some signals, and Han Solo takes a couple blasts at him, but then he explodes because he had to self-destruct. Just the design of this character. Now, I'm not sure if he actually designed it or if they took the influence from it, but who is the H.H. Geiger, the guy who designed the Aliens world?
Okay,
it's kind of very reminiscent of that to me. He's got this kind of rounded shape and all these tentacles coming out, and he was just a very kind of ominous, menacing looking figure.
Well, and I mean, I had nightmares about that droid when I was a kid.
Exactly.
After I saw Empire Strikes Back and all the other bad things that are happening in that movie, like Han Solo getting frozen in carbonite, Luke getting his hand cut off. I think I remember vividly. I had a nightmare about the Imperial probe droid because he was like a spider, like an octopus, like so many different really gross creatures when you're a kid. It just left that impact on me. That's why he made my list, but he was at number 9, not number 7. The other thing that I thought was really cool about that droid was when they're coming out of the bottom of the Death Star and they're all flying off, like they all had their own mission. That was a really cool scene to see in space.
Yeah.
So I liked him for that too.
And he was such a cool character that they've carried him forward. And I think there was a couple of appearances in the Clone Wars and some appearances in Rebels, different variations of him and in different sizes. I think one of the fifth sister, she has like
that's right. There was 2 or 3 of them, really mini probe ones.
Yeah.
I remember that episode. That was a really good episode.
Yeah, they're good figures or good characters or good designs. So I think they've carried them forward to our benefit.
Awesome. So that was your number 7. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is EV-99. He is the kind of the leader of the interrogator droids down in Jabba's palace. He's the one that has a little bit of a verbal confrontation with R2-D2.
Oh, when he says you will serve on the master's sail barge.
Exactly.
Oh, that was, yeah, okay.
And R2-D2 gives him a little attitude, and he stands up. He's like, you're a feisty one. Now, again, a short scene. Cool looking character, lots of attitude. But again, to me, being a vintage figure collector, he's part of the last 17 figures that they created in the original lineup. And so now he's a little bit harder to find. He's rare, he's worth a lot of money, and it kind of just puts him on my list a little bit higher.
And, I mean, great scene in Jedi. Mm-hmm. I mean, everybody remembers that scene where he's making R2 the waiter droid. And, he's got a really good personality. Like, I think they really spent some time developing that character for such a small scene. And Star Wars does that so great with the droids.
Yeah, and to have 2 essentially inanimate objects and a confrontation with each other on the big screen, and the scene to play off so well, it was really a great job that they did with him.
Absolutely. So then we get into my number 5 now. So my number 5 is Buzz Droids from the opening sequence of Revenge of the Sith. And the reason I like them so much is because they're feisty. They start ripping off. I think they rip, like, I can't remember what Obi-Wan's droid's name was that was in his
R4.
craft. Was it R4?
I think R4.
And he just rips his head off and throws it away, and you're like, oh my god, these things are just awful. Yeah. And then Anakin's pushing them off with his wing and tries shooting them off, and these things are just a menace. Like, if I was flying one of these ships and I saw Buzz Droids, I'd turn around and get the heck out of there. Yeah. And I love that opening sequence is probably my second favorite opening sequence of any of the Star Wars movies.
Solid. Yeah.
It's a non-stop shot for, I think, about 6 minutes. There's no cuts. It's them flying. They show them flying under and over and around and shooting, and the droids, and it goes on for such a long time. And these droids were such an integral part of that opening scene for me, and that's why they made my list so high. They were number 5 for me.
Yeah, when you originally said, hey, let's do a top 10 droid list, I was like, yeah, there's only a few. But then when you start thinking about it, there's so many droids within the Star Wars canon. And honestly, I didn't even think about the Buzz droids. They didn't even pop in my head. I just don't know if they would have made my top 10 list, but I agree, they're a really cool character. I love the delivery of them. The missiles get shot out, missiles kind of pass the ships up, and you're like, oh, what's going on? Then they blow up, and all these Buzz droids fall, and it start attacking the ship. Like you were saying, they start doing all that stuff, and luckily R2 was there to save the day.
And that was a great scene for R2-D2. Like, he's like shooting at him and they're fighting, and then I think Obi-Wan yells, hit him in the center eye, and he gets him. It was a really cool scene for R2, even though it was so short.
Yeah.
All right. So back to you.
See, where are we at? Okay.
You're number 5, I think.
Here we may get a little controversial, but even though we haven't seen him in a movie yet, just based off his design and based off what we've seen in the trailers and the clips, K2SO makes my top 5.
From Rogue One.
From Rogue One.
Okay.
K2SO.
So you have no clue what he's actually going to be like except from the trailers, and you're willing to put him halfway up your list.
I'm willing to
I need an explanation.
Okay. He's halfway up my list right now, and I'm thinking, this is my prediction, after Rogue One, he's going to be higher up my list. This guy, he's amazing. The design of him, he just looks incredibly intimidating. He's like 7 feet tall or something. He looks incredible. And we've seen a couple little behind the scenes clips, or we've seen some clips from the movies and some of the more recent trailers where we get a little insight to his attitude. And he seems really cold and calculated, but he seems like he's going to be kind of the straight man comic relief of this movie.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
but not the goofy comic relief like 3PO or
no.
Battle Droids. He's going to be serious, but everything he says has got a little comical twist to it.
Yeah, and he'll be the sarcastic one. Like, he'll be the Han Solo. He could be the Han Solo of this movie.
Han Solo, yeah.
Yeah. And again, I didn't put him on my list because the movie hasn't come out yet. But we said canon, and trailers are canon. I mean, he's a figure in the canon universe. But just to let you all know, Jason and I are going to see Rogue One on opening night. Then we're going to immediately come back here and we're going to do our non-spoiler review and then our spoiler review. But we won't release the spoiler. We won't put the spoiler review up till Monday after the weekend. But we're going to put the non-spoiler review up immediately on Thursday night, so you guys can watch it Friday morning before you go see the movie. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to ask you, after we see Rogue One, he's number 5 now. I'm going to ask you, where did he go? Okay. So who did he bump out? Obviously, he'd bump out your number 10 if you really love him. But I'm going to want to know, is he 1, 2, 3, or 4, or is he still at 5?
Okay.
So,
but my prediction is I think he's going to move up.
Okay.
We'll see.
And then we get to my number 4, and I really wrestled. My top 4, they changed it about 4 times because I love these 4 droids. But my number 4 was WAC, also known as WAC-47. And again, that's from Secret Weapons in the Clone Wars. This droid also made an appearance. He was a pit droid for the all those pit droids they had for the pod race in episode 1.
Okay. Hit him on the nose.
Yeah, hit him on the nose.
Yep.
But this one had a real life to himself. He came into his own in Secret Weapon. He was like defying the Colonel's orders, like that little Colonel that was inside the droid in Secret Weapons. Whack was the guy. He was like, oh, I don't know. I am not, because he said, okay, all these astromechs, and he called them mechs. The Colonel said that, and he goes, I'm not a mech. These are mechs. Please keep me separate. And he's just got this attitude for a droid throughout the whole show. He's the comic relief in that episode. And love this droid. I hope we get to see this droid in other movies or in Rebels, because he was a great, great character.
Now, remind me, this episode, was this the Bounty Hunter episode? Where they helped defend the farmers?
No, this is the one where they had to infiltrate the Empire. And so what they did, this is the episode where R2 gets his rockets. He gets his upgrades because they send in all these 5 droids to get all their upgrades. But basically it starts out this tiny little colonel. He's only about this tall, and he's leading a mission of astromech and droids to go on a mission and to steal some plans in the Clone Wars. And they hollow out one of these droids to put him in, and that's his command control center. He's inside a droid so that you can't see that there's an actual live being. And so this WAC-47 is kind of the comic relief. He's their pilot. He's always defying the Colonel's orders. At one point, he locks the Colonel in the closet, and he goes off and takes control of the other droids. And R2 has kind of a supporting role in this one. But when they do the upgrades, like they did the upgrade on your pink droid, and they put it in his helmet, and it was a magnet, so he could just make things magnetized to him.
Yeah, I remember that.
But that's when R2 got his rocket booster upgrades.
Okay.
Was in that, because if you notice in Star Wars Episode 1, he's already got his rockets in those. But in Episode 1, R2 doesn't have rockets yet, I don't think. Like, not the upgraded ones. They'll last longer, they'll work longer. So that's why I really liked WAC, though. Okay. You really got to go back and watch that episode.
I guess so.
It's one of my favorite Clone Wars episodes.
I know going through the Clone Wars, a lot of episodes I maybe only watched once, but I know, like with Rebels, I'm watching each episode at least twice, and I usually enjoy it better the second time. So definitely I'll have to go back. I think sounds like I would enjoy that episode a lot. Yeah,
it was an all droids episode except for that one Colonel, and it was really cool. So that's my number 4.
My number 4 is C-3PO.
So we punted him. He was my number 8. So
Okay.
go for
Let's
it.
go back to C-3PO. C-3PO is just an icon. I think you had mentioned to me you can't have Albert without Costello. You can't have R2-D2 without C-3PO. I mean, they come in a pair. He's a little annoying sometimes, so he's a little further down the list. But just such a fantastic design. The design was loosely based off Maria from Metropolis, or I think a 1927 science fiction movie. Just a great droid. He's there to kind of inform the audience of what R2 is saying. And he's got a little bit of attitude with R2. I think his humor gets a little too much in some of the prequels, specifically episode 2, what a drag as R2's dragging his head. He's got some bad lines in the prequels, but as far as that classic iconic character, you can't get a whole lot much more iconic than C-3PO. I mean, you show anyone that character and they say, "Oh, Star Wars." People know C-3PO.
And he was number 8 on my list. And again, you're right. I said you can't have Abbott without Costello. And 3PO to me was always just the comic relief droid so that R2 had a sidekick.
Yeah.
I always thought of C-3PO as R2's sidekick. He did probably my favorite scene with him is in Empire Strikes Back when he gets disintegrated and he goes on Chewbacca's back.
Yeah.
And I had that little action figure with Chewbacca and the R2 or the C-3PO backpack.
Yeah.
That's probably my favorite thing about C-3PO was when
When
Chewbacca's putting him back together.
He puts him together backwards.
Yeah.
He puts his head on backwards.
But yeah, that's about all. But he had to make my list. If it wasn't for R2, he wouldn't have made my list. So he had to make my list.
Yeah, he's definitely an iconic character. He deserves to be on anybody's top 10, for sure.
All right, so now we get into my number 3 droid, which I know you guys are going to give me a lot of flack about this, but my number 3 is R2-D2.
Explain yourself.
Are we punting? Is he on your list?
Oh, yeah, let's punt.
Okay.
He's on my list.
All right, so then we get to your number 3.
My number 3 is IG-88. Again,
Okay.
He's one of these characters that's on screen for, same as 4LOM, he was on screen for 5 or 6 seconds. He was part of that bounty hunter troop in Empire Strikes Back. He's the really tall droid. Again, I have something with tall droids. K2SO, IG-88. They just look intimidating. Again, going back to the vintage figures, he was just such a cool little figure. He came with 2 guns. Like, who comes with 2 guns? How can you handle 2 guns? But just such an intimidating figure, such a cool looking figure. Again, they've carried that figure forward. They use that design in a lot of the Clone Wars episodes. They are different makes and models, but the same essential design. And I think to that character's service, because the characters in the Clone Wars were pretty cool. I think they called them not assassin droids, something else, but they just made a really cool character.
He would have made my list if we were talking Legends. Because in the Legends universe, he had 2 books about him. He was in a lot of the video games.
Yeah.
He had an amazing arc in one of the video games where he was a kick-ass bounty hunter. They showed so many things about the way he was a great pilot. He got rid of like 5 X-Wings by himself in his ship, shooting down rebel forces. But because he was only in that one scene in canon, that's why he didn't make my list.
Okay. Well, I think just based on his design alone, that's why he's in my top 3. And the figure with the 2 guns, awesome. A couple little facts about him. His head is actually made from a Rolls-Royce engine, a Rolls-Royce radial engine from World
no
War II,
way.
I believe. And you can actually see his head in Episode 4, A New Hope. In the cantina scene, you see his head, but it's flipped upside down and it's hanging up inside of the cantina and painted a different color. But they just used whatever they had at hand. They're like, oh, these junk engines, let's rip some parts out of there. This piece looks cool. Let's make a droid out of it. And that's how they rolled back in the original trilogy. And
That's cool.
He's got a Rolls-Royce head.
All right, so my number 2 is C1-10P, or as we all know him, Chopper from Star Wars Rebels. So is he on your list?
He's not on my list.
And I can't believe this. Okay, Chopper's number 2 on my list, and I got a whole bunch of reasons why. He is, to me, the first droid that has super attitude. He's like the dog that you just can't train. Does whatever he wants. He'll pee on the rug if he chooses to. He has a mind of his own. He doesn't obey anybody on the Rebels team except for Hera. But if the other ones tell him what to do, he'll do it if he feels like it. Kanan's had to yell at him a couple times. Get back to the damn ship and get it ready to take off. I love this character. You had mentioned, and I can't remember which one, but you had mentioned when we were talking about Chopper that you saw that one scene that you liked him where he was vulnerable. Can you tell me about?
Yeah, it was just maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago in Rebels where they went back to Hera's homeworld to try to save some sort of family heirloom.
Right.
They had gotten there, and Chopper was standing in front of a Y-wing, and I think
the shot down Y-wing.
Yeah, Ezra had said something about what's wrong with Chopper, and Hera said, well, that's the Y-wing that he came from, and he gets a little weird every time he's around it. And to me, that scene just, for lack of a better term, it kind of humanized Chopper a little bit and gave him a little bit of something that I'd be interested in. Like, what happened there? What happened with that story that Chopper has these feelings? A droid having feelings, but Chopper has these feelings about this. To me, that's his one redeeming quality. That everything that you just talked about kind of annoys me. They basically took attitude from all the other droids, gave it to Chopper, and then cranked it up to 11. And it's too much. I don't like when dogs pee on my carpet.
I don't like it either.
All that kind of stuff.
But as long as it's somebody else's dog, I'm laughing my butt off.
True.
I wouldn't want to own Chopper, but I'd sure love to see one of my friends own him.
Sure. He'd be fun at parties, that's for sure.
So that's why he was number 2 on my list. Like, he beat out R2-D2. I'm not sure where he is on your list yet, but I can't tell at all. But that's why Chopper was so high on my list, because I love Rebels. I look forward to watching Rebels every Saturday so much because those characters, I'm so invested in them.
It's a great show.
And Chopper, he's the droid on that show, and I love him to death. So let's get to your number 2.
My number 2 I have as BB-8.
Okay, and BB-8 is my number 1. So
you go first. Go for it.
All right, so again, Chopper, R2, and BB-8, I changed these guys around so many times before I made this list. But I'm going to tell you guys about one scene that made BB-8 the number 1. And it's when we first see him out in the desert and Rey saves him from the guy that had him in the net.
Tito, I think.
Yeah, Tito. Yeah. And then BB-8, he's free, and Rey goes, okay, go that way, try not to get sunk, and Rey's walking away, and she turns around and she goes, no, you can't come with me. And he's like this puppy dog. I wanted to cry. I could kind of feel him
at that moment.
Yeah, and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
And then she goes, come on. That moment for me humanized this droid more than any other droid in the Star Wars universe. Like, R2-D2, very cool, always saves everybody. But this droid had so many emotions and feelings. I think just J.J. Abrams and the Star Wars universe gave this droid something they haven't given any of the other droids.
Yeah.
Just when he's rolling down the stairs to go into that Force Vision scene right before the Force Vision, you can see him. He's being so careful but so deliberate to make sure Rey's okay.
Yep.
Love this droid.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything that you said. He's fantastic. And to take an original trilogy fan as myself and to immediately gravitate towards a droid like that, they knocked it out of the park. I think the first moment that did it for me, if you watch the original trailers, when The Force Awakens originally premiered its trailers, and we see BB-8 racing through the Jakku desert, everyone's like, oh, that's cool, but it's CGI, so it's kind of lame. And then they had said, well, no, it's not CGI. And everyone's like, oh, really, what? And then it was at Star Wars Celebration. They were having They were having a panel, and they were like, well, here, let's introduce BB-8. And he rolls out on stage, and I think, the 8,000 people that were in that little auditorium, everyone, you could hear this. And it just energized the Star Wars fan base. And at that moment, you saw him roll out on stage, and you're like, oh my God, they made this thing, and this thing's real. And I know in the movie they used several different versions, a little puppet version.
Yeah, they had that one when they were running with him. He was on a big arm.
Yeah.
And there was a guy in a green suit running as fast as he could, pushing this droid along.
But to actually physically make that character, and I know this toy right here does the same thing.
This is a $200 one. It's the really tiny one. I could have got the big one that's $50, but this one does so many cool things when you do it on your phone. It actually gives him a personality. He'll tilt his head when he's talking to you. He makes such cool noises. And to make that, like just for us to play with and have the sounds.
Well, they developed this droid and they're like, well, hey, we've got the technology. Let's cram it into a little one and sell it. Great design on this thing. And the fact that they gave him so much personality in the film and everything that he does, it's so cute, so adorable. He's very cute. He's very adorable.
He's the dog I want to own.
Yeah.
I don't want to own Chopper. I want to own this dog.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole thing with the
thumbs up. That was awesome.
Yeah. He's definitely worthy of a number one.
And you got number 2, so
yeah,
I mean he was right there.
Exactly. Yep.
All right, so that takes us to the last droid on the list. Your number 1.
My number 1, I don't know who it could be. It's R2-D2. This guy is classic. He represents Star Wars so well, and he's been a fan favorite for generations, for decades.
Well, he's been in every movie.
He has been.
And every TV show.
Yep.
There's nothing that he hasn't been in.
Exactly. And I know that George Lucas has said very often that the Star Wars story is told through the eyes of C-3PO and R2-D2.
Yeah.
And R2-D2, like you said, he's the main guy and C-3PO is the sidekick.
Yeah.
R2-D2, essentially the story is told through him. He's there to save the day very often. He's a Swiss Army knife. He's got all sorts of gadgets and he does everything. And he's got that attitude. He's not going to pee on your carpet because he's not out of control. But he's got a little bit of attitude, just enough. But he's got enough respect for people that, he falls in line when he needs to as well. He's a great character.
He's a fantastic character, and that's why he was number 3 on my list. The thing, and I know this is a kid-friendly show, so I'm going to say it as nicely as I can, though. I don't know how R2-D2 didn't have more trips to the doctor for STDs, though, because he sticks his probe in just about every other starship around.
Yeah.
I always found that funny when I heard that.
He does go to the doctor a lot. You always see him. He bangs up, and then the next scene he's all shiny and new.
Getting his penicillin shot.
He's definitely taking a trip. So I'm sure they gave him a penicillin shot or two along the way. And Kenny Baker, rest in peace. He died this year, but he brought that character to life. I mean,
in a world where robots were never brought to life.
Exactly.
He was the first one.
Again, going back to that Logan's Run idea where you stick a human inside of a droid. I mean, he's just a tin can. But you stick a human inside of him, just give him a little shimmy, a little shake, turn his head a little bit. So much
that you couldn't have done remote control-y. Like the human, you needed that human.
That shimmy, that shake,
yeah,
definitely. And in response to people, definitely while they're on set and you're having actors play off each other, and someone says something and he kind of gets nervous.
Can you make this guy go while I talk about him, just so that they can see what he's doing? This is the coolest thing I've ever seen. Look at this. Like, where can you get toys like this? Star Wars.
Costco.
That's it. But Star Wars makes the coolest things. With R2, a lot of people criticize this one scene that I really like about him, and it's in, I'm pretty sure it's in, you'll have to correct me, you'll know more, but I think it's in The Phantom Menace, when they are in the scene where Anakin hides in the ship and it takes off to go and shoot down, and Anakin, little baby Anakin in Phantom Menace, destroys the ship. And but I think R2 winds up knocking over a whole bunch of those battle droids and then squirting oil on them and lighting them on fire. And do you remember that scene?
Yeah, that scene is actually from Revenge of the Sith.
It's from Sith.
That's in that original scene that you were talking about where they attack Grievous's ship.
Right, yes.
And R2 is still in the hangar bay while Anakin and Obi-Wan...
They're in the elevator, and he's playing with the elevator, but he lights all these droids on fire.
I think there's maybe only 2 or 3 super battle droids, but they kind of come after him, and they pick him up, and he squirts oil on them and lights them on fire. I thought that was awesome.
It was super awesome. And again, that just shows R2-D2, he can do anything. He can open doors, he can get rid of droids, he can help humans. Yeah, he's a great, like I said, he made 3 because I love Chopper and BB-8 because of the personality. Those two guys have the personalities that I absolutely love. That's the only reason he wasn't higher on my list.
And I would say to that point, R2-D2 has a great personality. To me, much better than Chopper, and a little bit better than BB-8. To me, BB-8's a little too cute, and maybe that's why I bumped him down to number 2. A little too cute, but he's basically the modern version of R2.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And great droid, BB-8's definitely worthy of being a...
And R2 is definitely worthy of being number 1. Like I said, I tossed those 3 around, but for those reasons, that's why he was number 3.
Definitely.
All right, so let's count down our top 10 lists for you guys so you can see what we did. I'll start, and I've got at number 10, Huang, the lightsaber builder. Number 9, the Imperial probe droid. Number 8, C-3PO. Number 7, Flo. Number 6, the B-1 battle droid, Roger, Roger. Number 5, Buzz droids. Number 4, WAC-47. Number 3, R2-D2. Number 2, C-1-10, who's famously known as Chopper. And number 1, BB-8.
In my top 10, I start out with QTKT. Number 9, the Gonk series power droid. Number 8, 4LOM. Number 7, probe droid. Number 6, EV9D9. Number 5, K2SO, soon to be higher on my list. Number 4, C3PO. Number 3, IG88. Number 2, BB8. And number 1, R2D2.
Great list.
Definitely.
That's awesome. So guys, if you like these top 10 lists and you want to keep doing them, you can help us out in a few ways. Put in the comments section below your top 10 lists of droids. We'd love to hear about it. We'll comment back. Tell us if you thought we were out to lunch, or if you like his list better than mine, or mine list better than his, as you probably do, of course. And just subscribe to my channel so that I know you guys are out there watching. You can find me on email, movieguySciFi@gmail.com, or you can follow me on Twitter @movieguySciFi. Jason, where can they find you?
Find me on Instagram. That's the place where I'm at the most, at Vintage Star Wars on Instagram. And if you guys do like these episodes, tweet them, Instagram them, Facebook. Get the word out. Let people know that we're around and just having a good time.
That's awesome. Thanks for being on the show again, Jay.
Definitely.
And remember, everybody, nerds rule the world.